The following is an encore performance of Show Me the Money, so you may hear some dated references. We'll be back with a new show for you next week. In the meantime, enjoy.
For the next hour, you'll be leaving the Show Me state and entering the Show Me the Money state. So stop what you're doing, grab a pen, and get ready to learn, people. Because you're tuned to the Ozarks' #1 show about your money. Randy Floyd, founder of Floyd Financial Group, will be your guide for straight talk about living the life you deserve in retirement. Prepare to be empowered. Now, here's your Show Me the Money host, Randy Floyd.
Thank you so much, and welcome to Show Me the Money, the radio show that gives you the straight talk and honest answers you need to help you reach your wealth management and retirement goals through smart investing and careful planning. My name's Jeff Shade. I'm just here to ask the questions. But of course, the words of wisdom and solid advice come from Randy Floyd, founder and president of Floyd Financial Group. Randy, how you doing today?
Well, I'm doing pretty good, except I think I have had a mental moment, actually, Jeff. I signed up to do a half Ironman next April.
Is it going to take you from now until next April to train for something like that?
Well, so that's 5 months, and so you figure this is a 1.2-mile swim followed by a 56-mile bike ride, and then a 13.1-mile run.
Wow. You are incredible. You've always been my hero in that respect, and you're proof positive that, keeping in shape like that and keeping mentally fit is going to make you last a lot longer in retirement. So I'll be following along with you a little bit on your training regimen for that half marathon. In the meantime, I'm working up to probably a mile now as far as running goes. So
awesome.
I'm a little bit behind you, Randy, but I hope to be like you at one day in the future. Anyway, a good day I hope it is ahead for everybody listening to us today. Holidays in the windshield there, not too much longer, and we've got a lot of good shows lined up for our folks between now and the end of the year, so we're excited about that. Excited about talking about something that we've talked about in the past, and that, of course, is inflation. Of course, we're excited to talk about it, not that excited to experience it. And I did a little calculation, Randy, about inflation and the fact that over the last 40 years or so, inflation has really cost us quite a bit. I think it's around 232.9% according to my calculations. So let's talk about what it's been like in the past.
Yeah, well, all of us probably, I say all of us people that are near retirement or in retirement probably remember the 70s when inflation was really out of control. And Mr. Volcker, he was our Fed chairman at the time, decided to raise interest rates. I think that was also the end of the Jimmy Carter era through there. And
right.
Mr. Reagan entered the scene as president then. But anyway, he raised interest rates to slow down the economy and really put us on what I call economic chemotherapy, and slowed things down and put interest rates through the roof. You may remember back in the 80s how high interest rates were to buy a home or something of that nature. 12%, 15% were those rates were not uncommon. And here we are today at 1.99% is the latest thing I'm hearing on mortgage rates in some of these 30-year mortgages, which is just crazy. But in the past, we've had hyperinflation, I would call it, back in the 70s. Do I think we're headed back for hyperinflation now? I think there's some signs that say no. I don't know if you saw last week or not the consumer spending and the growth of the economy. Economic growth rate slowed down to 2%, just based on the fact that consumers had slowed down quite a bit on their spending. Now, some of that may be due to seasonality, where people just got back into school in September. They had some spending in August, then it slowed down a little bit there. But I really do think, too, that all the stimulus checks have kind of made their way through the system. So it's going to slow down the economic growth, which may slow down some of the pressure on pricing. And if we can never get this supply chain gap fixed, we might actually put a little lid on inflation for a while.
Yeah, still those ships are out there waiting to come in to port and bring the things to us that we need. And certainly there is a supply chain shortage. I went to my supermarket again last night, and I went to 2 supermarkets, and there wasn't one out of the 2 supermarkets, or both of them did not have those rotisserie chickens that we buy frequently. So I don't know what it is about the scarcity of chickens, but they certainly didn't have them in the supermarket. And the deli section was actually closed. There was nobody in there even to work in the deli section. So it is rather frustrating and and, the number of displays are way smaller than they used to be, so certainly there is a supply line shortage. Was taking a look at inflation here the past few years. I mean, 2016, 1.3%, and in 2017, 2.1, then 2.4, 1.8, and 1.2 last year. But now it's 5.4, at least that is what it was reported in September. In October, probably it's going to be even more than that. Do you think that inflation is being underreported? It's actually maybe closer to 6% or maybe even more than that.
Well, I think there's pockets of things that are definitely much higher. I know that when I go to the grocery store, I'm kind of surprised to see the price of certain things, for sure. But, there's certain things that haven't changed that much. Like, I drink a lot of black coffee. I mean, at home, that's what I drink most of the time is coffee. And so I buy two kinds. I buy Dunkin' Donuts. I buy their regular blend, and then I buy Javalier medium roast Colombian, and I blend those for my coffee. And the only reason I bring that up is those have not changed at all in price. So that's something that hasn't changed at all, really. But then you go over and you look at the price of steak. If you're wanting to buy a really good cut, it's probably up 25% from where it was probably as little as a year and a half ago. And, we're seeing it across, all fronts. A head of lettuce now, it takes a gold piece to buy.
Oh, so. Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, we're seeing quite a bit of inflation, and I think it might actually in some areas be more than 5.4%. I think a lot of it, though, has to do with transportation cost. I know that I have some people that are in the trucking industry, and rates are way high, probably double what they were a year ago, and all that goes into the cost of goods and services because everything has to move, Jeff.
Yeah, exactly right, and it many times does come by truck. I've noticed that as well. And the prices in the supermarket, we have a little illustration here that you can get at floydfinancialgroup.com, which shows a dozen eggs, 1980, 84 cents in 2021, $1.64. So 80 and $1.60 is like 100% increase there, right?
Yeah, that's about 100% increase. Now that is over, I guess, 40 years. So I don't know what that breaks down to if you were to take, 2 or 3% compound and see what that looks like. But I would think that, we're probably averaging on eggs, maybe 3% average per year. The one I thought was interesting was the gallon of milk.
Yeah.
Interesting, in 1980, it was $1.19. I looked back on some other things here. In 2000, a gallon of milk was $2.78.
Wow, okay.
And that's interesting that it's only like $3.03 a gallon average price right now. Of course, I think what a lot of that is that's due to all the subsidies that are paid to farmers and things on milk and dairy farming.
And home prices in 41 years, $55,392. The average in 1980 and 2021, the average across the country, $303,331. My calculation's up about 450%. Buying power of $100, 1980, $40.08. In 2021, it's $11.24. So it has lost 72% of its buying power. All that leads to the fact that, when you really think about it, if past is any indication of the future, and it is possibly in this case, maybe not as much as it has been in the past, but inflation is here to stay. It's going to cost us more money to live, to buy the things that we need. So how can we prepare as a group of retirees for increasing inflation to make sure that we're able to keep up with that in the future?
Yeah, that's a good question. So a couple of things I would say. Definitely we can't leave our money just sitting in the bank. Because it's earning 0.02, and that's not 2%, that's 0.2% of 1%, or 0.02 of 1% in many of these cases, 0.2 in some of the money market accounts. So we're seeing a lot of people today are realizing that, hey, interest rates are probably not going to come back strong anytime soon. I have a lot of people that say, hey, Randy, I keep waiting for the day where we have 5% CDs again.
Yeah.
And I'm telling people you may not be able to live that long. I've had people, waiting for that for the last 15 years, to see strong CD rates, and we haven't had them for a very long time now. The other thing is if we look at all types of bonds, bonds are where we own the debt of a company. For years and years, that was one of the mainstays of retirement income. Well, today, interest rates are so low, a good corporate bond may pay 2%. We're looking at 10-year Treasury bills at 1.5%. And if interest rates go up, all that's going to happen is those assets will get devalued, and we're not making any money to boot. So the answer to your question is, how do we hedge? We have to have something today that is either in the market some way or tied to the market. And yes, we still have to manage risk for retirees' portfolios, and we do that here because we always look forward saying, hey, we know that there's going to be market corrections. We know there's going to be times that are not going to be good, especially over 20, 25, 30 years of retirement. We've got to plan for those things and make sure that that is steeped into the plan and the income stream for those people all the days of their life.
So you mentioned investment vehicles that are tied to the market, not necessarily the market 100%, but they're tied to the market in some respect. What are some examples of investment vehicles that we could use that would be tied to the market, but yet still would not have too much risk?
So, we can be in the stock market. We can own stock, or we can own exchange-traded funds that are stocks. We can have mutual funds that have stocks in that portfolio. And mutual funds sometimes are a mix of stocks and bonds. ETFs are generally we pick stocks or bonds that we want to be invested in. And then we have also certain vehicles that are tied to the market to get their gains. One of those are what's called fixed indexed annuities. Mm-hmm. We also have variable annuities that we just really almost always say no to just because they're too price heavy to own. A lot of fees in there. And most of the FIAs we have to be very careful with because most of those will give you downside risk protection, but you just don't make much money. And if we're going to hedge against inflation, we need to be able to make, the lion's share of what the market does when it goes up, where a lot of these are going to cap you at 2, 3, 4, 5%. In the years where money comes in at 20 and 30%, it's not good to make just 5. We need to be able to make 12s and 15s and things like that. And there's a few products out there that allow us to do that. So I always encourage people, if you're thinking about an annuity, a fixed indexed annuity especially, you should visit with us because there's just a few of those that really give you the best advantage. But by blending stocks, by blending some fixed index annuities, and really, having some ready cash that might be invested in some short-term bonds where there's not much volatility there. And when I say short-term, I mean really short-term. Also, right now, there is certain high-yield bonds that could make sense. They've been running up quite rapidly here in price over the last, just a few months. But, that story may be mainly over right now. But again, Jeff, the thing that I think that's important is, again, it needs to be something tied to the market or the market itself. And there's always money being made somewhere because there's always a new company. There's always a new idea that's linked in a different way that's making money through companies. And what we do here at Floyd Financial Group to help people really hedge that is we're always looking at what's next, right? Who is doing well, what industries are changing and growing, what industries are maybe subsiding and not doing so well. We always like to look for a trend line. When the trend line looks good, we want to get in, not right away, but early in that cycle. And then we always want to get out too soon because every Walmart eventually becomes a Kmart.
Yeah, you mentioned that before too. I think the takeaway here is to work with a professional. I think you've certainly demonstrated that you're pros there at Floyd Financial Group, helping people keep up with inflation. I know it is a daunting task, but I also know that you're up for that task. If you would like a complimentary financial plan with Randy Floyd, you want to talk about the effects of inflation and how you can keep up with it. For our loyal listeners, of course, we're offering that complimentary, no-cost, no-obligation financial plan. To get yours, call this number today, 417-889-7233. That's 417-889-7233 to request your plan. You can also request it online at the website, which is floydfinancialgroup.com. That's floydfinancialgroup.com. Thank you so much for joining us this week for Show Me the Money. We're glad you're here with us. We're going to take a quick break, be right back with more of our show after this here on 104.1 FM KSGF, Springfield's Talk.
Ready for a heapin' helping of some more real talk? Thought so. Here's another serving of Show Me the Money with your server, Randy Floyd.
Welcome back, everybody. This is Randy Floyd. You're listening to Show Me the Money. And in this segment, we're going to be talking about what's really important to a lot of retirees. I guess I would say most retirees, Jeff, and that is don't outlive your savings.
That's exactly right, Randy. Who wants to outlive their savings? Who wants to get old and not have any money? Certainly not me. So in this segment, we're going to be talking about that. And, it got me to thinking about the old days. And I go back and I think about, when I was a kid and being around my parents, grandparents, and cousins and things. And we used to have these family picnics on Sundays during the warm weather. Every Sunday we got together at one particular family farm and we had a picnic. And I remember that a lot of my relatives were retired, and they didn't seem to worry about much of anything. They had Social Security, and many of them had pensions. That was living good, but today it's not the same, Randy, because most people do not have pensions. They have Social Security, but they don't have pensions. So I guess the question is, what do we do?
Yeah, you're right, Jeff. It means we look back historically and we look at this. In 1981, 84% of full-time workers had a pension. That's 84% in 1981. And here we are in 2020, only 28% of people had pensions. And I will tell you, that number's less today than it was a year ago, probably by quite a bit, because the landscape is definitely changing. Of course, what started the shift, I think, away from the pension plan was in 1974, there was a law passed called ERISA, the Employee Retirement Income Security Act. And basically what it did was it formed the 401k and all the modern retirement vehicles that we use today. And so I think that was the beginning of the shift away from companies' responsibility to provide a pension to where now all of that is put on the employee to save and make sure that they invest that money properly. And really, it took a lot of liability off the companies and a lot of cost, if you will, off of those companies as well, looking forward, and really promoted the stock market because all that money, started going into the market, and that's why after the mid-'80s and through the '90s, we had such a tremendous run-up in the market. Every time we see an influx of cash into the system, it always finds itself landing in asset prices over a few-year period. And this time is no different, and that's why we're seeing markets run a little bit right now, is all this extra money that was put into the system. And I know we're off topic here, but I just had to throw that out there.
Yeah, sure.
So anyway, but it's amazing. Yeah, today we don't have that pension for most people to fall back on for sure.
Okay, Randy, so in the old days, people had Social Security, and they have Social Security today. Now, my calculations and my individual circumstance, Social Security is going to make up about 35% of what I need in retirement. So there's a big gap there of 65% that I need. Is Social Security, does it normally make up about that 35-40% of someone's retirement income?
Yeah, I would say between 35 and 50% is what we see in most cases. We have a few people that, it's a little smaller percentage than that, and on the other side a little bit where it's maybe a little bit more than that. But generally about 40%, I think, would be the number. And so all the rest of that money has to come from where? Basically from money we've saved, right?
Exactly. So what are some of the strategies that you use to make sure that people don't run out of money? How do you take those savings and make those things last the rest of someone's life?
Well, the first thing that has to happen is we have to, at Floyd Financial Group, take responsibility, get a hold of the steering wheel, and drive everybody's retirement vehicle for them. And what I mean by that is they want to retire, they want to go and enjoy life then after they've worked 35, 40, maybe 45 years. And we don't just go out and set something up and park the money there and just say, hey, have a good life, and then that's really what happens and we aren't watching. We're watching every day. So when we set up these portfolios, they're not static. It's something that has to be monitored over and over, and we have to be watching where money is flowing. We have access to any asset class that makes sense for people to make money in retirement. Now, some of those things are really risky. We pretty much avoid the high-risk investments here. We're not looking to hit home runs. We're looking to hit consistent base hits and drive-in runs and win the game and not run out of money, right, is the idea.
Yeah.
So we have to be sure when we build these portfolios that we look at all the tools that are available and what is in favor and what's working and what can work based on the circumstances. We've talked about the fact that bonds are not a good investment right now, and they may not be for a decade. Or it might be longer. The last cycle we had of bonds where the interest rates went down from 1981 through 2020 pretty well, from 15% to 0.53 was a 40-year cycle. The cycle prior to that, from 1962 to 1981, where bond rates were going up, was a 19-year cycle. So those things don't change very quickly, but there will be a day when bonds will be a good investment again. So what we're always doing here is we always have a hit list of companies and stocks and investments that we're looking at that make sense, and we're always looking, okay, where can we position this money to give it the very best use where we can get a good return and not take too much risk. And when we look at building the portfolio, there's many pieces to that portfolio that we track and monitor daily. And we're always looking for that next great company that's got legs and room to grow. Just to kind of give you a case in point, we had one company that we looked at here recently. I won't name it on here right now, but we had invested in it about 6 months ago. And then they had signed a deal with a major retailer, and that stock went up $90 a share in about 2 months. Mm-hmm. So we were waiting for the right thing to happen with that. We had a very small stake in that company, but because of how that has grown, we had like 1% of our portfolio invested in it. Well, now it's about 3% of our portfolio just because of the growth. And probably pretty soon what we're going to be looking to do is to trim that position and redeploy that capital that we made someplace else in the next uptrend line. So there's a lot of ways to go about looking forward and protecting assets. Again, we use many different tools, but just know that there's no one tool that we rely 100% on. It's a mixture of many tools and many investments that make sure we don't lose money if a company goes really bad. We don't lose a big chunk of money because we overly invested in one company. Many times we'll see people come in here and they've got, all their money invested in O'Reilly, which O'Reilly's been a great stock, don't get me wrong. But looking forward, how much more can it grow? And is there a better use of that money than having it all tied up in one stock? Because you never know what can happen to one stock. Things can go wrong.
Randy, it sounds like you're always looking for opportunities, places that you can place money to make people money. Now, I know that some of these things can have some level of risk to them. Are you finding that people are shying away from risk as they get a little older in retirement? And if so, is the market still an answer for those people who don't want too much risk?
Yeah, so that's a great question, Jeff. So again, we blend assets together to achieve the proper balance of risk in the account. So to kind of give you an idea, I would just say for the average retiree that comes in here, and now nobody's average, I know that, but let me kind of give you an idea. If I have people that say, you know what, we're a moderate risk, what we're looking to do is be sure that we capture more of the upside than we do the downside. So in our moderate risk bucket, we were just doing a review here, just a few days ago. And really what it works out to is we can capture about 75% of the upside while only capturing about 50% of the downside. So when markets move, people say, well, I want all the upside. Well, if you want all the upside, you got to be able to take all the downside, okay? Mm-hmm. But we have a way to build plans today that give you more upside capture and less downside capture. And that over the long haul gives us good plus money, puts us in a growth position so we can have income and hedge inflation as people are in retirement going through 10, 15, 20, 30 years.
Randy, we talked about annuities before in this program and the fact that many of those annuities can be relatively safe, but really these days some of the annuities do not return very much on your money, do they?
No, they don't, and so they are really a dismal vehicle in many cases, in most cases, as a hedge against inflation. We have got to be able to make money when the market is coming in, or as my dad used to say, you got to make hay when the sun shines, right? So It's the same thing. We got to do that in the market. When the market is working, we got to make sure that we're making our money there, not taking too much risk, and we're not going to go out there and throw money at some fledgling company. Most of the companies that we invest in are $100 billion, $250 billion to $1 trillion companies, and there's a couple of them, as you know, Apple and Microsoft, that are nearly $2 trillion. You know, so we're not looking to go out there and take undue risk with people's money. We're just not going to do that. We've had tremendous success over the years. We don't have people running out of money with the plans that we build.
Indexed annuities, Randy, those are annuities that follow an index and they are somewhat in the market, but they're really not. Are those an option?
Yes, they are. Now, an indexed annuity, let's make no mistake, is absolutely not in the market. They do track a market index, and there are many market indices out there that they can track. The one that we generally prefer is the S&P 500, and the reason we like to track that one, Jeff, is that everybody can see it and monitor it daily. It's just like you go home at night, you turn on the news, and what do they talk about? Well, the Dow did this, the NASDAQ did this, and the S&P did that, right? Mm-hmm. So it's easy to see, and it's easy for my clients to see that and track that on a daily basis. without having to think about it very much. Now, obviously, they have access online to anything that they want to see, whether, at any of the places that we park money for them and have it invested. So, we just like the more mainline stuff. There's many indices that they can tie to that sometimes work, sometimes don't, and are a little bit nebulous for clients to really latch onto. So we stay away from those. But you've got to select the right company and the right structure. You got to make sure that you don't have a lid on your earnings of 3 or 4% because, hey, they will protect your money. Let's say I got a 0 downside, but I got a 4% upside. Well, what's the most amount of money I'm going to be able to make over the long haul? Maybe 2.5%. Well, if I'm spending 5% out of my portfolio, I'm losing money already, and as inflation eats away, I'm really losing money. So we need something that's going to give us 50, 60% of the upside of the market and still give us the downside risk protection.
We're talking about not outliving your savings here on Show Me the Money with Randy Floyd. And Randy's got a lot of tools in the toolbox there. If you want to take a look at those tools and have Randy show you how they work, give him a call at 417-889-7233 and request your complimentary no-cost, no-obligation plan. You can also do that by going out to the website, which is floydfinancialgroup.com, floydfinancialgroup.com. You're listening to Show Me the Money, and we're going to take a quick break. Be right back with more of our show here on 104.1 FM KSGF, where Springfield comes to talk.
Back with your financial catch of the day, and it's a big one. Here's more Show Me the Money Radio with your host, Randy Floyd.
Welcome back, everybody. This is Randy Floyd. You're listening to Show Me the Money. And in this section, we're going to be talking about what do we do with our 401k when we leave our job.
And Randy, we all know that a 401k is one of the most important retirement planning tools that we have. You pay into it for decades and will likely need to rely on it, among other income sources, for decades in retirement. Now, the potential tax benefits and power of compound interest can make it a great saving and investment tool for anyone who practices financial discipline and contributes regularly. That's why it's so important to understand what options you have for your 401k when you're leaving a job. So let's start off with that, Randy. What are the main options that you have for your 401k when you do leave your employer?
So I think we should back up just a little bit before I answer that question directly. So we're talking about 401ks, SEPs, which are simplified employee pension plans, solo 401ks, all those different things that maybe you have through your company that you may own or through your employer. It could be a Roth 401k. It could be just a traditional where it's pre-tax money. There's a lot of different scenarios out there. But again, when you leave your job and you're thinking, okay, it's time to retire, I'm going to turn on Social Security, I'm going to turn on my pension if I have one, if you're one of those 28%ers that have that these days, that's great. If not, you're going to have to rely upon your savings. So let's say you've been working for a company and you have a big 401k that you've saved up over your lifetime, and now it's time to turn on income from that. How do we go about that? Well, you can leave it where it is, and generally speaking, they're going to let you do that, but there will be some companies that will say, you know what, we really don't want you to leave that 401k here with us anymore because we don't have any way to really uphold our fiduciary duty to you because we don't see you, talk to you, correspond with you anymore. So for most people, they're going to say, well, let's roll it out of our 401k over to an IRA. So if you have a regular 401k that's all been funded with pre-tax dollars, it's going to go into a traditional IRA. One of the reasons that you want to do this is, number one, you have a lot more options for investing. Most 401k plans have 25, 30 options maybe for you to invest in. And today we're seeing more and more of what I call the target dated funds, where it says, hey, if you're retiring in 2025, select this fund. If you're retiring in 2030, select this fund. And they're preloaded, predetermined asset classes and setups inside there, which don't take into account anybody's family dynamics, their risk tolerance, and what they're trying to accomplish. So kind of a blunt tool. So you want to get to where you can go to the IRA and have all the investment world out there available, and actually probably even in some cases save quite a lot of money in fees. Now, if you have that in mind, you can roll it over there. There's no tax consequence of any kind. You could, and I have seen people do this, and I would not recommend this. People say, well, I owe $100,000 on my house, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take $100,000 out of here and I'm going to pay off my house, not realizing that it just cost them $130,000 to pay off their house. because they had to pay the taxes on that money. And most people today have interest rates that are in the 2.5% to 3.5% rates on their mortgages. So I would highly recommend they don't do that. Let's roll it over. Let's control our taxation. But we roll it over into an IRA. We have all the investment world available. We're very transparent. We can see how everything works there. So you can take all of it, save the taxes, put it into the IRA. You can take a partial distribution, put the rest into the IRA. You can roll it over and put it into a Roth IRA and pay the taxes. So you have lots of options. And so here's what I would tell everybody listening. There is no blanket right answer. It's different for each person as to what really is going to make them happy and make them comfortable and feel good about retirement. Because when you go into retirement, number one, you're going to be kind of like a fish out of the water the first year. I have a lot of people tell me, it takes a little while to get used to the idea of not going to work and having that regular paycheck. However, we're going to set up a regular paycheck with Social Security and their IRA, but it's still a little bit unnerving for people when they first get out there and they're retired, when they're wondering about income. But everybody's situation is different, so I would just encourage people, call us, let's sit down, and we'll talk through all of the nuts and bolts of retirement income planning and just retirement investment planning. And people, after we visited 2 or 3 times, they always feel really comfortable with what we're suggesting, and they understand it because we take time to educate people, and we don't want to just force feed people things, boring financial information.
Right.
What we really want to do is help them just to be connected to their investments and understand why we do what we do.
Yeah, you take some complicated stuff and make it so everybody can understand it there, too. And we're talking in this segment about your 401k and the different options that you have. If you're leaving your job, as you said, Randy, you can leave it in the old company's 401k, but a lot of companies will want you to get that money out of there. You can roll the old 401k into an IRA where you have more options for investing your money. If you're going to be having a new job, if they have a 401k, you could probably roll it into that one as well, too. But, there is the option that maybe you probably don't want to do, but a lot of people do, and that's simply just cashing it out. What are the tax ramifications of cashing out the 401k?
Well, if it's a traditional 401k, if you haven't set it up as a Roth, then all of that money is pre-tax and it's subject to tax when you take it out. So, if you got $1 million IRA and you want to cash it in, you're going to pay roughly 40%, to get it out of there. So
right.
let's not do that.
All right, Randy, so tax implications, very, very important. Are there any ways that someone can roll their 401k into an IRA without paying tax on it?
Absolutely. In fact, 99% of the time, Jeff, that's what we do. We simply take it from a 401k to a traditional IRA, and it does produce a 1099 that goes to the client, and the IRS gets a copy of it. But all it does is show where the money moved from the 401k to the IRA, and it's not a taxable event. And we do that, like I said, probably 99% of the time. Once that money is in the IRA account and we set up income streams, only what we take out is taxable. So that really makes that pretty seamless, and it's really easy to do. Once that money is over there in the IRA, we have the whole world of investments to choose from. We have some people that have, quite a lot of money in these 401ks, and sometimes they don't need all the money there. If they want to do some Roth conversions and things like that, we can show them how much money they can take out of their 401k and maybe not go into the next tax bracket, so we can keep it affordable and maybe roll that money into a Roth, so in the future they'll have some tax-free money, not only for themselves to spend, but also to pass on to their beneficiaries.
Randy, if we got some younger people listening to the program, they're not yet ready for retirement. Maybe they've got 20 years to go for retirement, and they don't have a 401k. I mean, a 401k, if your company offers it, probably the best investment tool that you can have. Am I right or wrong on that one?
Well, I would say this. Whatever your employer will match, you should get the maximum match, because free money is always good. And you're going to be saving and investing. And even though the mutual funds inside a lot of those plans are not what I would want them to be, there are good funds that we can find in most every plan, and we can get them to where they track an index like the S&P 500 as well. And so, and we can help people if they want to talk about, how they should be invested and that sort of thing. We can help them with those decisions as well.
We're talking about 401ks with Randy Floyd here of Floyd Financial Group and Show Me the Money. If you have questions about your 401k and whether you should cash it out, roll it into another 401k, or what you should do with it, once again, that number 417-889-7233. So, Randy, if I've rolled my 401k over to an IRA and I don't need the money, then what?
All right, that's a good question. So we have a lot of people that ends up being the case, or they need very little out of it. So we don't have to take any money out of that IRA until we reach age 72. At age 72, we must take what's called the required minimum distribution. And the government's pretty serious about this. If one does not take their required minimum distribution when they hit age 72, they will tax you 50% of it as a penalty for what you didn't take. So just remember that when you're getting to age 72, if you have a traditional IRA or a 401k that you've left behind and you're not working, you're going to have to take required minimum distributions. If you have made arrangements to convert some of that money to a Roth IRA and you've already paid some of the tax, there is no distribution requirement on you for your Roth IRA portion. Upon your death, however, your children or your beneficiaries, whoever inherits that, they will have some distributions that they will need to take, but it will be tax-free distributions to them.
If you have questions about your 401k and rolling it into an IRA or what to do with it, simply give Randy a call there at Floyd Financial Group, 417-889-7233 to request your complimentary no-cost, no-obligation financial plan. If you think you don't have enough money to work with Randy there at Floyd Financial Group, you just might be mistaken, because Randy will meet you where you are. 417-889-7233, that number. Once again, you can request your plan online and take a look at the firm, some of the educational materials out there too on the website. It's floydfinancialgroup.com, floydfinancialgroup.com. Time for us to take a break here on Show Me the Money, Randy. We'll be right back with the last portion of our show here on 104.1 FM KSGF, Springfield's Talk.
People of the Ozarks, step away from the fishing pole and prepare to be shown the money, because we're back with more Straight Talk with Randy Floyd.
Welcome back, everybody. This is Randy Floyd. You're listening to Show Me the Money. And to wrap up our show today, we're going to talk about what does it look like and what do we do when a person comes in for their free complimentary portfolio analysis.
That's right, Randy, and every week in the program we talk about this. I mean, this show is largely educational. We give you a lot of things to think about there, but when it comes down practically to doing this, most of the things that we talk about, certainly great in concept, but you can't do them yourself. You really need a financial advisor to guide you along the way with this. And that is the reason why every week we invite people to call 417-889-7233 to get their complimentary, no-cost, no-obligation financial plan. So, Randy, I thought in this segment it would be a good idea to talk about what someone can expect. And you have a 5-step process there at Floyd Financial Group. Can you tell me more about that?
Sure, yeah. We follow a 5-step process, and what's really kind of great about it is this 5-step process really applies to any financial decision or concern that you're going to have now or in the future. It really helps you to make good informed decisions that are going to make sense. Sometimes we don't know the questions even to ask, and by going through this process, we learn a lot about you learn a lot about us, and then it helps us to get to the next step in the planning process. So the 5 steps that we go through, number 1 is called discovery. And discovery is when we just sit down and drink a cup of coffee, or have a bottle of water or a Coke or whatever you want to have here, and we just kind of talk about what's important to you, our potential client, your family. We learn about your family, all the family dynamics, because everybody's different. There's no one blanket solution for everyone. But during the discovery process, really what we do is we just kind of become friends. I mean, we learn what's important to you. We talk about what you want to do in vacation. For some people, vacation is playing golf every day. For some people, it's fishing. Mm-hmm. For some people, it's riding bikes. For others, it's planting, flowers and attending gardens. And for some people, it's watching movies anytime they want to. There's so many things that can be a part of that. And then also we talk about, okay, what's important to you as far as legacy planning? Do you want to leave an inheritance to your kids? Is that important to you? And most people say, well, yeah, that's important. If there's money left over, I want them to have it. But I do have that occasional person that says, no, I had to work for it. they can work for it. I want my last check to bounce, that sort of thing. So that's kind of what discovery is about. We learn what kind of work people have done and just, what their needs and what their goals and dreams are during that process.
So it's really just sort of figuring out who this person is and what retirement means to them. And then in your head, probably sort of trying to figure out a plan to help them achieve what their ideal retirement is. So that's the discovery process. We've identified who you are and what your goals are. So where do we go from there?
Well, number 2 is the analysis portion of that. So, and this might happen during the same meeting that we are doing discovery, but many times it's a second meeting. And the analysis part of this is where, okay, here's what we've saved, here's how our money is parked, here's how much is pre-tax, here's how much is after tax. We talk about your requirements for income in retirement. What's your budget? What's your bare bones budget to keep the wolf away from the door, as I say? And then the other part of that is how much money do you want for fun money? What do we need to support our lifestyle in retirement? And so we gather all the assets, we figure out exactly what the budget looks like, and we assess the risk that's in their current portfolio. We also ask them a lot of questions about risk, and then we determine, is their portfolio they currently have, if they've already, maybe they don't have a 401k, maybe they've already retired and they have it parked someplace else, can we build a better mousetrap? So through the analysis portion of that, we make sure that, number one, their risk tolerance is commensurate with what they want for risk. Also, is their current portfolio going to be able to supply them the income they're going to need? Also, what's it going to look like during the next market downtown? What's a stress test look like on their current portfolio? And then we will show them how we can improve and give them a better risk-adjusted return than they are currently having.
Randy, when you do this analysis, how far do you make these plans out for? Do you count on people living to be, 80, 90 years old?
Yeah, I'm looking at 30 years generally for most people. So a lot of times it's 95. Nobody wants to get to 94 and run out if they're going to live to 95.
Exactly. You're looking for that proverbial bus out there. I think I'll just end it now. So the first one's discovery. Second is analysis. Then where do we go from there?
So the third one is planning. Once we understand the client and know what's important, we're going to go through the planning process, and we just create a customized plan for each person. Everybody is different. Everybody has a different Social Security amount. Everybody has a different budget requirement. Everybody has different savings amounts. Some people are single. Some people are married, and it's one of those things that everybody is different. So we're looking to really tailor-make a plan for that person, and then we have them back in and we go over the details of that plan and really drill down and answer all the questions for people. We even really show underneath the hood as much as people want to know, how is this money invested? Why do we invest it that way? What happens when we have a downturn? What do we do if we have a COVID 979 or, whatever it may be? We're looking at all those different things during the planning process and the review of that plan that we've created.
Now, Randy, is that plan set in stone? What if the client looks at that plan and says, Randy, I think you got this thing about 85, 90% right, but there are a few changes. Are you open to going back and then making those changes? Is it usually a several-step process to get the plan right?
So many times it's a small tweak that we have to do, and we can do that really on the fly because all the plans are built with a lot of flexibility in them anyway. So as we sit there, we're talking about, I might want a little bit more income the first 5 years, and maybe we can dial it back, after we're down the road 5 years, or I really want to do some great traveling and things the first 2 years of my retirement, so I'm going to need an extra $50,000 to do that. So we have all different types of things that come up, and we can build those and adjust the plan right there many times, right on the spot, because again, we build them very flexibly, so it's not a problem.
So this is a collaborative effort. It's not just Randy saying, here's what you've got to do that, and there's no other choice. It is a collaborative effort. So it is discovery analysis, then you do the plan, you tweak the plan if you have to, and then once they take a look at the plan, said, Randy, I think you've got that right. What's the next step?
Yeah, and that's generally what happens, Jeff. Rarely do I say rarely, I don't know that I ever do, say, well, okay, Jeff, we've gone down the plan, we got it all done, what are you going to do? We never go there. What generally happens is we have had enough discussion and enough meeting of the minds, and we have hit common ground to where the people say, all right, so what do we have to do to get started? What's the next part? Well, the next part is implementation. That's step number 4. And we make this very easy for people. I have a couple of folks here in my office, Taylor and Zachary, that do all the paperwork and make sure that it's right, and then they monitor it as we process all this, but we make it really easy. The client has to sign a few documents. If we have a 401k to roll over, we might need to make a phone call to the company, but we set everything up. All they have to do is verify their information, make sure that everything's secure, and then we will start that 401k rollover process. And then we monitor it all the way through, and when everything gets transferred, we have people back in to sit down, set up their logins, get them comfortable with the different websites where they are going to be able to watch their money and track it on a daily basis. And that's how we get the program started and implemented. And from there, then, we will set up step number 5, and we'll set up our first review out about 90 days.
Okay, so implementation is the next step, then it's going to be review. If someone doesn't have a plan, of course, this is very straightforward, but if they have a plan with another financial advisor, maybe they're working with another financial advisor, as the old song goes, breaking up is hard to do. Do you help people with, saying goodbye? It's been a good time, but, I think I need to move on.
Yeah, once in a while we will help people kind of craft a letter or something like that. But generally speaking, we do this through a system that's used across the financial industry and has been for many, many years, called the ACAT system, and that's an electronic transfer of the assets behind the scenes. But yeah, we can certainly help people with crafting a letter and things of that nature to kind of say, hey, thanks for your past service. We've appreciated it, but now we're at a different stage in life, and thank you for your service, but we feel like we have to move on, and that's kind of how we do that.
Randy, discovery, analysis, planning, implementation, the review here, it sounds like this is a lengthy process. I mean, how long does it usually take to get through all these 5 steps?
It depends on the person, but, generally, I'm going to tell you we're going to have 2 to 4 meetings generally with clients before we get to implementation being the 4th meeting in that case. But, we're not in a hurry. We want to meet the client where they are. And, some people come in and they have a really good understanding of the market and everything already. So it shortens this meeting process where we can maybe do 2 steps, or once in a while we can even do 3 steps in one meeting. But for the most part, I would say that it's a 3-meeting process for people to really talk to us, do the planning and the analysis, and really arrive at a decision-making process for us to do paperwork and do all the transferring.
Randy, once someone becomes a client of Floyd Financial Group, I would imagine there's some follow-up. I become a client. How often do you follow up, or how often should you go back and revisit this plan?
Yeah, so the review process, step 5, basically, is where we do that. So we'll schedule our first review out about 90 days, and then every time we have a review, we schedule our next review, depending on what the client is comfortable with and what they want to do. So that can be 90 days, 6 months. People that we've had for many years now, we do an annual review. They always know, though, that they can call me at any time, or they can talk to Taylor or Zach if they need to change a withdrawal schedule, if they want a little extra money, or whatever they want to do. They know they can call us at any time. And here's what's great. They don't have to call and hold on at a 1-800 number.
Right. And if they do hold on there at Floyd Financial Group, you got a very lovely message that talks about what you do there, too. I'm very familiar with that particular message. Randy, so many of these financial programs that I hear, and so many of these financial firms say, if you have at least $1 million or more to invest, give us a call. If you don't have $1 million, do not bother with us. Are there minimums at Floyd Financial Group?
No, we really don't have any minimums here, Jeff. And we hope we never get to the point to where we have to do that. We are busy here. I mean, we stay booked out, sometimes out to 3 weeks, because we're just booked about every hour to hour and a half every day. But again, we always have support staff. If you need to make a phone call to change a withdrawal, to up a withdrawal, to take a special withdrawal, to buy a car or whatever you're trying to do, we have people available to talk and help you. But I do have to work by a calendar, and every week I'm in probably 20 to 25, 26 meetings. But there's plenty of room here. There's no minimums, and we're happy to help people anywhere they are. I tell people we can always make things better.
And the big bonus there is that you're just really, really nice folks, just, the salt of the earth people there at Floyd Financial Group. Always enjoy talking to Ashley and Taylor, and, of course, you and Jake and Elizabeth, everybody there at Floyd Financial Group. So, once again, listening to this program, do not miss out on the opportunity to get your complimentary no-cost, no-obligation plan. Once again, the number 417-889-7233. We are right here in Springfield, Missouri. You can also go out to the website and find out more about the firm at floydfinancialgroup.com. That's floydfinancialgroup.com. Randy, I always enjoy my time with you every week, but unfortunately our time is up for this week. For Randy Floyd, I'm Jeff Shade. Get out there, have a great weekend in this great part of the country that we live in. We will talk to you again next week with another edition of Show Me the Money here on 104.1 FM KSGF, Springfield's Talk.